Hello, everyone. Say anything to anybody?
Hello.
Hey, good morning. Monday, October 10th, 2022. I am on the move. It's a little bit after 4 a.m. I'm heading up to the immigration office because this is what they require you to do because they're still in the 18th century. They don't know how to schedule appointments. So they tell you, get here as early as you can, and the first X amount of people will get numbers, and everybody else will have to come back. So hopefully I'm there early enough. Alright, so I'm just going to document the process here. And this is one of the steps, unfortunately. I got a quote from last night. I was communicating with a woman who runs a company. There's several companies who do this that will do this process for you, so you don't have to do this. You still have to show up, but supposedly they make it simple. And I think she wanted 15,000 pesos, which is around 750 bucks. So for people where they'd rather just not have to worry about going online and finding the correct documents, you could just hire somebody and you give them your passport and you show up when they tell you to be there. I've been out in the middle of the night in Mexico City before, and it's usually this empty. Yeah, so now I picked today because the weather was supposed to be okay, and you have to wait outside there all day, supposedly. So that's why I'm going today. It's about 54 degrees. And I'm in shorts, actually. I just have on a fleece. This is how I normally dress. I have my raincoat in my bag just in case it rains. And if you're moving at a nice brisk pace, then you don't feel really the chill of the morning. So, but if you wear a light pair of pants, you're okay too, because it won't get so hot that you're going to be too hot. Alright, here we go. Hey, peace. Buenos tardes. Good afternoon. How you doing? Well, I'm not even sure what day it is today. I think today's I think it's Wednesday. But anyways, I wanted to address one thing while I was thinking about it on this walk. If you want to apply for your Mexican residency, temporary or permanent residency, I'm going to go through a step-by-step process because it is a little involved, but I should have written this down because I'm already forgetting what I was going to say. But primarily what I wanted to say is, what did I want to say? Number one, when you fill out the paperwork, the Mexican paperwork, sometimes their forms will have first name and last name only. It won't have middle name, won't have any other box to fill in. So you want to look at your passport, and you want to use the name that's in your passport. For example, if my name is if my name is David Dawei, but my middle name is John, and I fill out the form saying David Dawei, and my passport says David John Dawei, then all that paperwork will be rejected by the Mexican authorities. And that happened to me. Because I didn't see a box for middle name, and it didn't say it, and I forgot I'm in Mexico. And in Mexico, those type of mistakes are deal breakers. In the U.S., I don't think they'd really care. I think they'd allow you to modify it, or they just fill it in or ignore it. But in Mexico, in the box for first name, make sure that you put David, John, and then the last name Dawei. So, and if you have more names than that, you just look at what it says on your passport. That is the document that's going to matter. Because what the process is you have to get approval outside of Mexico to get the residency. So you have to go to a consulate or an embassy in the United States or whatever country you're in. And then they approve your visa to go to Mexico. And then once you're in Mexico, then you've got to go through the whole process of filing to get the visa converted to the actual residency card, which I've gone through now. Thankfully, it's done. And that's why I went with permanent, because a temporary visa, you have to do this every year. And I was like, there's no way I want to do this process every year. So that's the most important thing. And there was another point as well here. Let me think about this for a minute. I'll be right back. Okay, the second thing that I found extremely helpful, the day I went to the INM, which is the immigration office in Mexico City, is in the event that any of your documents are incorrect, instead of having to go all the way back to your hotel or to wherever you're staying and then have to go print them out, what I do is, instead of a cell phone, I suppose you could try a cell phone, but for me, cell phones are too small. I have a little Chromebook that I take with me where I go. And the Chromebook, it's tiny, fits in my book bag here. And I can tell you that saved my bacon on the day of my appointment, because what happened was I printed out that document and it said David Dawei and not David John Dawei. And they're like, no. And the reason I was upset is because I had actually gone into this office a week ago, and I waited 2 hours to meet with their information people. I had all the documents and the copies, and I went up and I talked to them, and they don't speak English, so my Spanish is rusty, but it was good enough to be able to communicate on this. And basically I told them, I said, the reason I'm here today is I want to go through this paperwork and make sure that this paperwork is correct, and there are not going to be any problems when I actually come here to file to get the conversion to the residency card. Because I've heard stories where people have come in, they've paid the fee, they get rejected, and then they got to go back and pay the fee again. And this is the real trouble here, is there's so much information and misinformation. That's why I wanted to just do this video, because as it is right now, let's see, it's October of 2022, and from what I understand, the Mexican government has changed this process like 2 or 3 times over the last year. And I think what's happening, and the reason I wanted to come down and get this done, is I think Mexico is not really happy with a lot of the foreigners who've come here over the last 2 years. I don't know this for sure, but just from what I've heard in the grumblings. And they like having the money come down. The problem is during the pandemic, every country was closed except for Mexico. And so every couple and their brother came here, and some real idiots came. And I think that Mexico's like, let's get rid of these people. So they've started making the visa process, or they were making the visa process more difficult for people who are coming on tourist visas. Because what would happen is, for the United States, you'd come on a tourist visa and you get up to 180 days stay without having to leave the country. I started hearing stories where people were like saying, they'd be like, well, how long are you coming here for? And people would be like, yeah, I'm here for a few weeks, into the whatever story they told. And the guy would stamp it like 14 days. And the person would be like, I need more than 14 days. Too bad. And I know people from Europe who have come over, and I think they get 108, I think they get 90 days, and they were only getting like a month. But I've talked to people here recently, and they've said that it's loosened up. I don't know. I know that when I came in, I got the 180 days, but that's a whole nother thing has changed as well. When you used to come to Mexico, you'd fill in the little immigration form on the plane. And now it's a different form. And Mexico used to give you an A, and the card would be an A and B side. And they'd take the A, and you'd keep the B, and you'd give them the B side when you left the country. And if you didn't have that when you left the country, they'd fine you, because that's your exit card. Now it's electronic. So I had to log in, and when I went to log in, it didn't have the information on there. It was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. And they just don't make things easy. And I'll just say, without getting into it here, Mexico, you could make this so easy. Hire me, and in a couple months, couple weeks maybe, I'll have this whole thing streamlined for you, where people will be able to come in and they'll be able to go through this process in an hour, and it'll be done, instead of doing this chaos. Now, I guess Mexico probably doesn't want to change it, because there's a lot of people who have jobs at the immigration office because of this. You get to this building, and there's probably 100 different windows of people. And they send you from one person to another person to another person to another person, when literally it could all be done with a computer in an hour. Very simple. So those are the two things I wanted to say in this video. Number one, use the name that's in your passport. That's when you go to the consulate, that's the name they'll use on the visa. So in the United States, most people don't start saying, hey, my name is, Gonzalo, in Mexico and in Spanish countries, they've got 5 names and they use them all. But in the United States, we typically use our first and last name and not a middle name usually, except in certain circumstances. And then when you go for that appointment, I would strongly recommend that bring a computer with you, and there's free Wi-Fi outside the office, so you just go outside the office and you connect using your Wi-Fi on your computer to the free Wi-Fi. And then your computer can convert the document into a PDF. When you print it as a PDF. And then there's a copy shop right next door, across the street. They charge an arm and a leg compared to a normal copy center, but bottom line is, if you need a copy, they'll copy it. And you can either bring one of those USB sticks, and you can put it on the file and they can download it, or you can use your email and email the documents to the copy place, and then they can print it right off there. That's what I did, is I emailed them telling them, please print this in black and white. And then when I went over there, they printed it off and paid them their, I think they were charging me about 50 cents, equivalent of 50 cents, which is very expensive. The place over near where I'm staying, they were charging me 2 cents, if I remember correctly. Actually, less than that. Yeah, about 2 cents a copy. Big difference. But when you need those copies, you'll pay it. Okay, so it's a very involved process. It's not a difficult process. It's just unnecessarily long, tedious, and inflexible. Because, and there's no reason for it. None. Other than, this is just the way it is, senor. Which, hey, if they don't want to change it, that's their choice. It's their country. But I don't know why they wouldn't want to. All right, so that's it on this front. So if you have any questions about the visa process for temporary residence, temporary or permanent residency, I can answer your questions, but eventually, when I have time, I'll do a video. This video is going to be a time-consuming video to put together, so when I have time to do it. So, hope all's well. Beautiful weather here today. October, 74 degrees, sunny, gorgeous. Cheers. Actually, there's one other thing I wanted to say. You can hire an agency to do this process for you. They'll do the paperwork, but you still have to physically show up at this office and wait in those lines and take up at least a half a day to a full day going through the process, depending on how many people. And so I met a guy in line. He was in front of me. He looked like he was in his 60s, didn't speak any Spanish, and he hired a place to do it. And I said to him, well, hey, how much did you pay for that? He was from LA. I said, hey, how much did you pay? I said, about 10, 15,000 pesos. He goes, oh, no, I paid more than that. He said, I think I paid 20 or 25,000 pesos. Now it's 20 pesos for $1, so you do the math. And I heard that, I was like, oh my God. And somebody had told me about this other woman, and I had requested a quote from her just as an FYI, in case I ran into a brick wall and I just couldn't do it. And she sent me, I forget the exact number, it was between 15 and 20,000. And that did not include, you have to pay 5,776 pesos for the conversion, which is approximately $300, we'll say. So that is an option. For me, it wasn't an option. I said my Spanish is good enough, and really you don't even need Spanish if you have your documents in order. If your documents are wrong, then you're going to need Spanish, because you won't have any idea what they're telling you is wrong, because they don't speak English there. One of the information people spoke English, but you're not going to be able to bounce from window to the information. Once you lose your place, you got to go to the back of the line. It is very inflexible. Just keep that in mind. If your paperwork is correct, easy. You just got to put in the time and just sit there in line for all day and just wait, and they'll tell you next, and they'll put you from one window upstairs all around. But if anything's wrong and you don't speak Spanish, you better have a friend or somebody with you. And I'm sure they won't want to be there all day with you. So that's the other thing. So you could just build it into the cost of it. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, when you see these people, hey, get a second passport, it's only $250,000. Well, you could do this for a lot less than that, even if you build in those fees. Okay, here we go. I'm on a running path, and I'm not running.